Hey guys, welcome back. It's Kelsey from Primetime Painting here, and today I'm going to show you how to turn these dried seed pods into realistic looking pumpkins for your wargaming, scenery, terrain, and dioramas. Alright, so I found these on Etsy. I just searched for miniature dried pumpkins and I ended up with like 4 cups worth for under $5. They're pretty economical. You can find them all over the internet. Also, since it's fall right now where I'm from, local craft stores are carrying them as well. You'll get a variety of shapes and sizes. I used them to make the base on this succubus from Super Dungeon Explorer, and I'm going to show you how to make something really similar to these. They are on the larger side as far as scale goes, but I'll show you them next to a couple other minis so you can get an idea of how big they are. So next to my Chaos Warrior here and my Goblin in a second, you can see most of these are pretty big, but not so large that they're completely out of scale. I wouldn't normally include these on bases just because of the size and the hassle of fitting a mini around them, but you can definitely use them on bases if you choose to, or they work perfect for scenery. I'm going to be making a few upcoming pieces with these as well, so keep an eye on my Instagram to see it. Alright, so I just picked out about 20 or so pumpkins that I like the shape of. Don't worry too much if they've got imperfections like cracks down the side. You can always hide those in the end, and we'll be covering up a lot of it with paint. There's kind of two sides to these, one with a smaller stem and one with a, I don't know really how to phrase it, but just a larger stem with more bits. Choose what side you like the shape of more. They're kind of rough and uneven. So some of them I've done small stem up, some of them I did larger side up. I also grabbed one that was broken so I can try and do a smash pumpkin effect with some guts spilling out. I think it's going to be pretty cool. To make them easier to paint, I'm going to mount them on toothpicks, and I'm just going to stab them through the bottom, but if you're not careful, you can go through the other side since they are fragile seed pods, so you might want to use a drill like I just showed you there. Just carefully stab them on the bottom, sort of off to the side of the center to avoid cracking them, and you're done. And I just stuck mine in some pink foam to hold them up while I painted them. Alright, so paints. I just picked out a few random colors. One pumpkin orange, it's called Chink Orange, and then I have charred brown from, I think it's Reaper, then a rainy gray, shrapnel red, merm green, moonray flesh, and mid brown wash. I'm going to use my airbrush to get a smoother transition, but you could definitely paint these by hand. Just adding a couple drops of flow improver, and I'm going to be starting out with the dark brown, just to give some natural shadows towards the bottom of the pumpkins, and stirring it up with a crappy old brush, and then kind of backflow it just to get really good mixing in the pot there. Testing it out on the paper towel here, you can see I left it pretty thin, and that's so I can get some of the natural tones of the seed pod showing through. I'm only spraying the bottom so I can get some natural looking shadows, just at about a 45-degree angle. Don't worry too much about it. I took them all off the foam while they were dry and just set up an assembly line. I was knocking the foam all over the place. But here you can see just spraying all of the bottoms brown. Even though some of the pumpkins are going to be different colors, they're all going to have the same brown underlying tone. Alright, next color, I'm going to use that orange. I didn't completely clean out of the pot. Basically, I just left whatever brown paint was in there left over after I finished all the pumpkins and just added my orange straight on top of it. So it's not a pure orange, but it doesn't matter. It's just a whatever orange you have lying around that looks pumpkin-y to you. And I'm leaving some of the brown showing, just spraying about 45 degrees down for the orange. So you've got a transition from light to dark. And again, my mix is pretty thin, so you can still see some of that pumpkin color underneath as well. Next up, to highlight it, I just mixed whatever was left in the pot, 50-50-ish, with Moonray Flesh, just an off-white. And I'm going to spray these top down 90 degrees only, just on the tops of the orange ones. I'm not being precise at all with my ratios or thinning of this paint. I had plenty of flow improver left in the paint from last time, so I'm not adding any more to this, just going straight with the cream color. And I'm going to be doing 4 different colors of pumpkin, so I did about 10 orange ones, I want to say. And like I said, just spraying top down highlight just a little bit on the very top. And don't forget about that broken pumpkin. We are using this highlight color to do the inside of that pumpkin as well, since they are naturally brighter on the inside. And I am using that same highlight color as the base color for the lighter orange pumpkins as well, just spraying it 45 degrees-ish down like we did with the base orange in the last set of pumpkins. For a highlight on those guys, I am just mixing whatever's left in the pot. Again, 50-50-ish with more of that moonray flesh, just to get brighter color of the same tone. And same thing, just spraying the very top of it for a highlight. I decided that last highlight color on the inside of the pumpkin wasn't bright enough, so I'm going to use this bright color on the inside of that as well. Alright, next is the darker red pumpkin. So I'm going to mix these two colors 50-50, just an orange and a red, and use that as my base color on the next set. Same exact thing, 45 degrees down, just all over, whatever. You get it by now. Highlight that, I'm just going to mix whatever's left over 50-50 with more orange. Same thing, just top down highlight. You can tell the pumpkins aren't really dry in this step, but I'm still going to highlight them anyway. It's just going to mix. No harm will come to them. And next, pumpkins are my favorite. I am going to make like a grayish green pumpkin. I'm going to start with about a 70-30 mix, orange to green. This green is pretty strong. You can see when I tested it on the paper towel, kind of just a warm orangish green that you're going. I ended up making this step a little thin, so you can see when it goes on the pumpkins it's a little thinner than I was going for. So I just hit them with a second coat later. Still spraying them while they're wet. I'm not really worried about the paint running or anything, as it is just a sort of terrain detail, and it's not really going to be the focal of any of my minis or bases. So just sort of whatever pumpkins. You can get away with a lot on little scenery bits like this. For the highlight, I am mixing in about 50-50 again with a rainy gray. It's one of my favorite scale 75 colors. It's a really interesting warm gray color. This is also about where I started having problems with my airbrush clogging, so you can see it's going on a little spotty, but that's alright. Still all blending. I'm not happy with it, so hitting it with another second coat real quick until I get more of an all over. And it's coming off pretty dark on camera here, but it is a gray. You'll be able to see it better in some pictures later on. It's a little better. You can tell, greenish gray. And here is my menagerie of pumpkins when they're all dry. Look pretty lifelike already, but a couple steps left, almost done. So last step on the pumpkins themselves is just give them a wash. I am using Army Painter Mid Brown. And I'm not going to thin it at all. It really doesn't need it. This wash doesn't have the coffee staining like a lot of Citadels do. So I'm just going to use a crappy brush, which is actually just my airbrush stirring brush, and you don't really want it to pool much at all, but you do want to make sure you get it in all the recesses, even on the bottom, even though you're not really going to see it. Just, I am a completionist. I like to have wash all over. And on the top as well, make sure you have a little bit sitting in the top just so around the stem is a little bit more shaded. And once you got your wash on there, it'll take about 15 to 30 minutes to dry, depending on how much you put on and what the weather's like that day. While that's drying, I'm going to show you how to make these little curly vine things that you sometimes see on pumpkins. So I've got some florist wire, I think it's 26 gauge, and some beading jeweler's pliers. I'm just gonna take the wire and quickly, well, not quickly at all, just carefully wrap it with the pliers into kind of a spiral spring shape. And natural variation is nice. You don't want them to be perfect every time. Just give it a few loops. And then when you cut it, you want to make sure to leave a little bit extra than you think you need on the stem, just so you can paint it a little bit easier. I just keep twisting it until I think it looks right, and then I cut them off. So you got a little twisty thing. Make a few of them. I ended up making about 30 for 25 pumpkins, so I could have some with 1, 2, 3, whatever I thought looked nice. And then I'm just going to use the same charred brown from earlier to base coat them. As long as these won't be handled or touched very often, you don't really need to worry about priming them. I'm just going to brush on some paint real quick, and I don't really care if some of the green shows through. I'm just going to try and get them mostly brown. And while you've got the brown out, when your pumpkins are dry, just go ahead and hit the stem as well. Alright, when your little coil springy things are done, just do a quick test fit and see how much you need to cut off the end. Basically, I just cut off wherever I didn't paint and glued them on with some super glue. If you want to annoy yourself like I did, use your magnetic tipped tweezers. It makes things really fun when you have to hold them down. Kind of glue them so they are touching the side of the pumpkin and not sticking straight up. That'll help with the longevity and making sure they don't break off on you later. I just added these randomly wherever I thought looked best. And that's pretty much it for the pumpkins. After this point, you can slip them off the toothpick and just glue them down to whatever you're using them on. I'm super happy with the finished product, and I can't wait to make more of them, especially with Halloween coming up here soon. I have some big ideas in mind. Alright, now for that smashed pumpkin I was talking about. I'm going to use Elmer's glue and mix it up with some paint and other materials to make like the innards of a pumpkin. So I've got some thread, orange paint, and sesame seeds actually, which are kind of out of scale, but they'll make pretty convincing pumpkins. I'm just going to cut some random few millimeter lengths of thread to make kind of that stringy material you see inside pumpkins. I know it's kind of hard to tell on the white background, but I have a little pile of strings made up. I honestly kind of wish I'd made more in retrospect and maybe some longer lengths, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Next up, I'm just going to make a puddle of my Elmer's glue and just a tiny drop of my orange paint. I don't end up using all the paint I put out. It's mostly just for a tint. I kind of want it to dry with the opacity of Elmer's glue and not orange. So mixing in my thread and just kind of play with it until I get a look I'm happy with. So there go in some sesame seeds, and I'm just going to keep mixing until I make some kind of like goopy pumpkin mess. And I start applying it to the inside of the pumpkin. I sped this up so I wouldn't super bore you, but I just sort of stabbed it around. I'm not super worried where it goes and where it doesn't go. And while I was at it, I did stab at the inside of the pumpkin just to kind of make more of a mess and get it broken up. And I just globbed on the seedy thread mess. And I'm trying to get it so it's spilling out, so I set it down and carefully just sort of play with it so the goo starts falling out onto the parchment. Try not to move it and just let it dry, or if you're impatient like me, use a hairdryer until it's dry. Just adding more seeds until I'm happy with it, and just, like I said, playing around and making it look as natural and realistic as possible. Gooey. Once it's dry, or in my case 75% dry, just peel it off and you're done. The parchment paper makes it so it doesn't stick, so it was actually really easy to peel off. It just, you can tell it wasn't quite dry at the bottom there, but I still didn't have any trouble with it. You could hit it with some gloss varnish if you wanted to make it extra shiny, but I felt the Elmer's itself made it glossy enough for my taste. And that's it, we're all done. You can see the natural version on the right and our finished painted version on the left. I think they look a ton better. I am super excited with how these turned out. I can't wait to use these on a diorama I have up and coming, as well as some terrain. And you can see in the next clip here, we accentuated them with some perfect looking fall leaves that we made with the green stuff rolled leaf punch. Turned out amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe. See you soon!